Rivers do not choose their destination. They are not persuaded. They are not loyal. Rivers obey the ocean because obedience is built into physics, not personality. This is where human misunderstanding begins. Humans interpret obedience as submission to authority. Within natural systems, obedience is alignment with dominant gradient. Rivers obey the ocean because the ocean represents the lowest, most stable energetic basin available to flowing water. Obedience here means inevitability. Every river flows towards the ocean not because the ocean commands it, but because the ocean defines the final state towards which all surface water must move. This is not symbolism, it is gravitational law. Water flows from higher potential to lower potential. Rivers are expressions of imbalance, seeking resolution. The ocean is the largest, deepest, and most stable resolution available on Earth. Rivers obey the ocean because nothing else can absorb them permanently. Lakes overflow, basins fill, land saturates. Only the ocean integrates endlessly. This hierarchy is not political, it is structural. The ocean sits at the bottom of the hydrological hierarchy, not by dominance, but by capacity. Capacity determines authority in natural systems. The entity that can absorb the most governs the flow. This principle appears everywhere. In economics, market absorbs surplus. In psychology, the unconscious absorbs conflict. In biology, circulation absorbs waste. Absorption is power. The ocean absorbs rivers without resistance. That is why rivers end up there. Resistance would create stagnation, and integration maintains flow. This reveals a critical law, and that is the system that absorbs without collapsing becomes the system others obey. Human hierarchies often misunderstand this. They equate power with force. Natural systems equate power with containment. The ocean contains everything rivers carry: sediments, nutrients, pollution, history. The river does not decide what happens next. Once it enters the ocean, it becomes part of a larger regulation system. This transition is irreversible. A river does not return upstream unchanged. Obedience here is transformation. When fresh water meets salt water, density shifts, chemistry changes, flows slows down, mixing occurs, identity dissolves. This is why deltas exist. Deltas are negotiation zones where river identity weakens and ocean identity takes over. Deltas are not stable forever. They migrate, they erode, they submerge. The ocean eventually absorbs them fully. This teaches a harsh lesson humans resist, and that is, smaller systems do not retain autonomy indefinitely when they enter larger ones. Autonomy exists only when gradients allow it. Human societies behave like rivers. They originate locally, develop culture, direction, and identity. Eventually, they encounter larger systems like empires, global markets, environmental limits, and what have you. At that point, obedience is enforced by capacity. You can resist for a time, but you cannot reverse the gradient. This is why civilization collapse at coastlines, not because the coasts are weak, but because they are interfaces with larger systems. Rivers also reveal why obedience is not humiliation. Rivers do not suffer when they reach the ocean. They fulfill their function. Function completion looks like loss of identity to humans. Humans cling to identities, rivers do not. This difference creates misunderstanding. Humans fear obedience because it implies subordination. Rivers demonstrate obedience as completion of flow. Completion is not failure. Rivers do not reach the ocean. Rivers do not reach the ocean, become stagnant. Rivers that do not reach the ocean become stagnant. Endorheic basins accumulate salt and toxins. Life struggles. Flow becomes trapped. This is visible in landlocked seas that shrink and die. Obedience to the ocean preserves vitality. Refusal produces collapse. This is not moral commentary. It is hydrology. This also explains why damming rivers causes downstream collapse. Humans interpret obedience artificially. The river's flow is blocked. Sediments accumulate upstream. Downstream ecosystems starve. Deltas erode. The coast retreat. Then, blocking obedience breaks systems. Humans justify dams as control. In reality, they introduce gradient conflict. The river still wants to flow because gravity still applies. Pressure builds. Eventually, the structure fails or damage accumulates invincibly. The river obeys the ocean, whether human permit it or not. Obstruction only delays obedience and magnifies consequence. Delay is not dominance, it is stored energy. This principle applies psychologically. Emotions behave like rivers. Suppressed emotions accumulate pressure. Eventually they overflow or rupture. The unconscious is the ocean of the psyche. It absorbs everything. People who try to dam emotional flow experience breakdown. Those who allow flow integrate. Obedience to larger systems preserve coherence. The ocean is the unconscious of the planet. Rivers carry surface events into it, weather, corrosion, waste. The ocean integrates and redistributes. Storm emerges, current shifts, climate adjusts. This is not intention, it is regulation. Human societies resist this framing because it undermines fantasies of control. Humans build upstream and believe distance equals independence, but rivers connect everything. No inland action is isolated. Rivers prove that autonomy is temporary. This is why water law historically respected downstream impact. Ancient cultures understood that what entered a river would reach others. Pollution upstream harmed communities downstream. Modern systems ignore this because abstraction hides consequence. But abstraction does not break flow. Rivers obey the ocean regardless of law, borders, or belief. This is why transboundary water conflicts escalate. Rivers do not belong to nations, they belong to gradients. And gradients do not recognize flags. This also explains why spiritual systems often associated with rivers, with journeys, and ocean with endings. Not because endings are death, but because identity dissolves at scale. The ocean is not the end of water, it is the end of riverhood. Riverhood requires banks, direction, narrative. Once those dissolve, water becomes something else. Humans fear this dissolution because they equate identity with existence. Natural systems do not. This is why rivers obey the ocean without protest. Protest is a narrative act. Rivers have no narrative, they simply flow. Flow is obedient to gradient. This principle clarifies hierarchy without domination. The ocean does not dominate rivers. It simply offers the lowest energetic state. Rivers choose it because physics leaves no alternative. Choice here is illusion. This is uncomfortable for humans to insist on free will. Who insists on free will? In reality, free will exists within constraints. Constraints define outcome space. Water demonstrates this relentlessly. Rivers can meander, they can branch, they can flood, they can erode, but they cannot reverse gravity. Freedom exists inside law, not outside of it. The ocean represents the largest law water encounters. This is why even rain that evaporates returns eventually. The cycle loops, but the ocean remains the central basin. Even glaciers flow downhill. Even ice obeys water law when it melts. Obedience is universal. This is why humans' attempts to redefine natural law fail. You can reinterpret meaning, you cannot reinterpret gradient. The ocean does not argue, it receives. Receiving is the largest authority in natural systems. The system that can receive everything without destabilizing becomes the regulator. Human societies would study this carefully. Leadership is not force, leadership is capacity. System collapse when leaders cannot absorb what they govern. Stress, dissent, complexity overwhelm them. The ocean absorbs complexity effortlessly. Rivers obey because absorption makes flow possible. This episode matters because it reframes obedience as intelligence, not weakness. It exposes how humans interpret hierarchy and therefore design systems that fail. When humans try to dominate instead of absorb, they create brittle structures. When they try to command instead of integrate, resistance builds. Water teaches a different model. Obedience emerges naturally when a system offers resolution. The ocean does not chase rivers. Rivers find the ocean. This is the difference between coercion and inevitability. Human power structures rely on coercion. Natural systems rely on inevitability. The ocean does not need enforcement and mechanism. It is the mechanism. Understanding why rivers obey the ocean prepares the mind for deeper lessons about tides, cycles, and non-verbal intelligence. It also prepares the psyche for surrender without humiliation. Surrender is not collapse. It is arrival at a system that can hold you. Rivers do not disappear into the ocean. They become part of something that can carry them further than they could alone. That is the real lesson.